Also, Glenn, thanks for kind of setting the tone for the Southern thing. I mentioned, also, by the way, it's nice to be back again. I worked this room about 2 weeks ago. Hopefully you'll be as nice as the crowd that was here. I didn't get paid then either, by the way. We talked a little bit before about some of my travels and down south for some of the churches, and I brought along, for those of you that were here a couple weeks ago, I mentioned a few little stories of some of the places, and one of my favorite ones was about when attending a service down there when Jesus fed the story about when he fed the 5,000 folks and the 2 fish and 5 loaves, and one of a couple of parishioners yelled out, what type of fish were they? Bass or catfish? And then what type of bait were you using? So some of you folks have heard that one before, but a couple of the other ones were interesting thing they have down there where the pastor, when it comes time to collect the offering, he'll need a volunteer. And so one of the places we were at, he says, we need a volunteer. Bubba, could you help out? And all of a sudden, 5 guys stand up. Interesting enough, 2 women stood up as well. Occurrence there. Another place we were at, church, very kind of big church, 500 members. So we finished up, we went outside, like we have a little, out here, we have a little registry of all the folks and the members. And interesting, 500 members, only 7 last names, which is interesting little twist there. Another strange part was the parable about finding and returning lost sheep. That's actually really real down there. So they actually go out and get them themselves. And then part of the rapture, a lot of folks under think that's actually what happens when you pick up something heavy. So something's a little different for some of that stuff. You know, the other thing that kind of is always funny about church and church jokes is like story time. And I know Pastor Chris does a nice job with the town of Worcester. 2 O's, right? Am I correct? So I heard a great story at the preschool. I don't know if this happened here or not, but the story about the church preschool was kind of multi-denominational, so they bring a lot of different kids in. And so one of the show and tell ones was to have the kids talk a little bit about their faith. And so Jacob, the young Jewish boy, he shows up and he brings the Star of David. He says, my name is Jacob, I go to Temple Beth Shalom, and this is the Star of David. It's a symbol of our religion. And then little Mary gets up, and Mary goes to St. Mary's, and she walks with a crucifix. She says, my name is Mary, this is a crucifix, the symbol of our religion. And then Tommy, the Protestant young man who goes to the local Covenant church, walks in, and she says, Tommy, what is that? He goes, that's a casserole, that's a symbol of our religion. So, you know, it's kind of unique. You never know what you get with the kids, right? And on that note, you've got, you were talking about how to be the new guy. And I remember hearing a story about the new pastor who goes out and tries to meet all the parishioners. And one day he goes to the home of a parishioner, and he's knocking on the door, and he knows the parishioner's home, but just can't get him to come to the door. So he takes his business card out, and this is kind of honest participation one here. He writes a little note of the business card, and he writes down, Revelations 3:20. So, you know what Revelations 3:20 is, Pastor? It says, you didn't know it was going to be a test here, right? So it says, so I had to read it myself, so it says,
I don't want to show off.
And so on the card, 3:20 says, behold, I stand at the door and knock, and if any man hear my voice and opens it, I will come in to him and I will dine with him, and he with me. So later that week at the church service, the pastor's helping doing the collection, and he's counting the money out, and there's his card. And on the back of the card, the parishioner wrote Genesis 3:10, which, again, any takers on that?
Go for it.
And it says, I heard thy voice in the garden. I was afraid because I was naked. Kind of strange things that happen there. We all know about pastors and some are a little cruel sometimes a little bit. And there's the old story about the local barber in town, and the word gets out that he doesn't charge the local clergy. So one day the rabbi goes by and he gets his hair cut and he tries to pay him. He says, no, Rabbi, I don't take any money from the clergy. So the next day the rabbi leaves a nice loaf of rye bread for him. A couple of days later, the local priest comes by and same thing. Gets his hair cut, tries to pay. No. Comes back a day later, then right in front of the store, there's a nice bottle of wine from him. Catholic priest, and so the local covenant pastor goes to get his hair cut, and tries to pay, and sure enough, he won't take any money. So the next day, the barber shows up, and there's 15 more covenant pastors in line. I know they're through a little bit from that part of it. Then there's a great story about the pastor, who, like our pastors here, greet the kids, greet the families on the way out. So little Tommy walks up to the pastor on the way out and shakes the hand of the pastor, and the pastor shakes his, and the pastor looks down, and Tommy's put some money in his hand. And he says, Tommy, what is this for? I don't understand. He says, Pastor, I want you to have it. He says, oh, Tommy, I can't take that money. And Tommy's dad also happens to be like one of the trustees, and he says, I don't know, Pastor, my dad says you're the poorest preacher in town, so you need the money. Strange things when those things happen to the pastors. For some of those stories, it's same like a little more of a more traditional story, but with Labor Day or Memorial Day coming up, always line people going out of town, and the pastor's trying to get out of town, headed to Pilgrim Pines, and waiting in line, a lot of traffic in the gas station. And finally gets up there, and a kid working the pump says, "Geez, Pastor, I'm really sorry." People for these long weekends, they always wait like right to the last minute for these long trips. So they kind of apologize, and the pastor turns to the kid and says, "Pastor says, last living says, I know what you mean. The same thing happens in my business as well." The other little cute story about little kids and Bibles. So little Tom is, again, Tom's so popular, by the way. Opened up, looking through his whole family Bible, and flipping through this big, huge Bible, looking at the pictures. All of a sudden, a leaf falls out, and Tommy picks it up and he says, "Mom, look what I found." She says, "Tommy, what is it?" He says, "I don't know, Mom, I'm not sure, but I think it's Adam's suit." Oh, there we go. I'll leave a two last little stories. And one about, and one, this actually one is actually personal. Other you guys may know, my wife and I met in church, and several years ago, I would wake up early and get downstairs and sit and have coffee, and just sort of thinking. And Ann walks down and she says, looks at me, she says, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Well, honey, remember when we were going out and your dad got us parking in the car?" She says, "Yeah, I remember that." I said, "Remember when your dad kind of came running at me in the car there and took that shotgun?" And he said, "You either marry my daughter or you're going to spend the next 30 years in jail." She said, "Yeah, I remember when he said that." And he wrote, "So why are you crying?" "Well, I would have got up today." With that, I'll leave you with one last thing. Folks know that
He's in trouble now.
you like that?
Amy's mortified.
Well, some of you folks know I'm sort of in the sales and marketing business, and as I travel around, I do see a lot of things at churches, and we all see these signs, and it says certain things about this and that. So I've kept a little collection along the way, and we have our own little sign out here, but it's really not that inventive. It talks about the upcoming smorgasbord or maybe the auction. So a couple of things I thought, just things, stuff that may work here. Could put out there like, free trip to heaven details inside. Try our Sundays, they're better than Baskin Robbins. Searching for a new look, come inside for a faith lift. Other things, kind of little stranger ones maybe, but nothing against Pastor Chris or Pastor Doug, but my personal favorite, having trouble sleeping? We have sermons, come on in and hear one. With that, I'll leave you and bid you good night.